Cheers and welcome to Bitter Reality Brewing. Yes, you're gonna brew your first kettle sour or your second, and hope you did it right this time, or your third. But I'm gonna help by explaining what I learned when I did the papaya mango kettle sour and what I read in so many articles, but they didn't actually mention this one critical bit of information. And I mean critical, should have been in bold print. Bing. Yeah, none of them mentioned it. So here's what we're gonna go over. I'm gonna use my brew, which I effed up and was a train wreck, but I recovered very well, just wasn't the beer I intended to brew. And we're gonna go over what went wrong, why, the 3 tools you have to have when doing a kettle sour, of course, beyond your kettle and some other, maybe some saran wrap, things like that, but 3 tools. You should have these. If not, I will of course put links below. I of course will make them affiliate. And if you buy one, I appreciate you very much, and I will get like a nickel or a dime, and I appreciate that too. It all adds up. I'm gonna tell you if White Lab's Acid Trip versus Good Belly, which one was better? Was one better? There's pros and cons on both, so you need to be aware of that. And yeah, that's your lactobacillus. But needless to say, why did my pH stop going down? Why did I end up with a 1% beer? How did that happen? Those are things I'm gonna mention so that you understand. And then I'm gonna give you 3 ways to keep your beer correct, or at least get the right ABV, and then also some tips to help you get the right pH and everything else in between, okay? So first, let's go into what the tools are you're gonna need, and then I'm gonna explain how you use them as we go through the session. You're gonna need a temp probe. This is great, okay? But this is better, and hopefully you have it calibrated. But basically, you wanna know, and I understand, sometimes you're like, wait, how do I calibrate that? If you can't calibrate it, that's fine. If you know what it's off by, 1-2 degree, then you know to account for that. Why do you need something like this? Well, if you're using something like, say, an Anvil Foundry, a Brewzilla, or any other all-in-one brewing system, there is usually an offset. So basically, the temperature probe on the very bottom is not the temperature it's telling you. It's telling you what it expects the temperature of the mash to be at a certain area. Well, we're not doing a mash. We're doing a mash to get our wort, but during the kettle sour, we're just keeping the wort warm and allowing it to sour. So we need to know what the temperature is of the wort, and we want to keep it at or below the recommended temperature by the company. And the reason I say or just below, so it can come up and down a little bit, we don't want to kill the bacteria off or cause a problem. We want it to be effective and do a good job with no off flavors or anything weird, okay? That's why you need that. Number 2, yeah, love my Easy Dens. No, you don't need an Easy Dens. When this thing breaks, sadly, I'm gonna bite the bullet and buy another one. But what you will need is a good hydrometer. Brewing America, Amazon, you get the whole kit if you don't already have it. But yeah, and I forget the glass, but it doesn't break easy. My wife dropped this thing and bounced around, which was impressive. Normally, if I touched it, it'll broke, but it's got a temp, it's got everything. You're gonna need to use this a lot, okay? And then you're gonna need a pH meter, a reliable pH meter. Somebody told me recently that the Aerokill pH meter is on sale again. I really trusted this thing. I really felt it did a great job. During my fiasco with my papaya mango, trying to get it soured, I questioned it. And I put it through the ringer. And you know what? Yeah, it was dead on. It was not the pH meter. It was something else I was doing wrong. So that's something to be aware of. Yeah, a great pH meter is a requirement for doing a kettle sour. You have to have it. Don't expect to do a kettle sour and not have a pH meter. So first of all, which is better? White Lab's Acid Trip or Good Belly? Well, like I said, they're different. From my minimal experience, and I do mean minimal experience, when I did the blueberry jalapeno, which came out amazing, but I don't know, is it not 5%? Is it 2.3, 3.2? I don't know what it is, but still came out amazing. I love that beer. Needless to say, what I saw from Acid Trip was that I didn't get as much lactic acid on the return for sugar. And why did mine stop going down? Because it ran out of food. It ate all the sugar. And it left me at 3.38, and I want it to be at 3.2. So that wasn't gonna work. Well, so Acid Trip's gonna bring a lot of cool nuances and some funk to the table, but it's not bringing anything extra other than that. And you gotta provide the sugar or the food to get it to where you want it to be. So I could have probably just dropped a tablespoon in there instead of dumping the whole thing like I did. I used the hammer, so the brain. Now, Good Belly is cheap, locally available for most people, and very effective. But it's going to have fruit in the good belly you buy, which means no matter what you buy, you're going to be contributing a fruit flavor to your beer, whether you want it or not. So that's kind of a con, unless you're getting like a blueberry good belly, which I saw recently, and putting it in a blueberry beer. You're set. But most of the ones I see are mixed berry and I think peach or mango. No, mango, I think. So those are flavors you need to take into account that you may be adding to your beer. Now, do you need to dump the whole thing? If you're like me and you're, trying to use the hammer, go for it. You really only need a little bit, but you need to give it enough sugar to eat it. How are you going to do that? Well, you're going to do it in 3 ways, okay? The first way is you're going to brew for maybe a 8, 10, 12% beer and expect to only get a 5, 6, 4, but you're going to have to watch it because you may or may not get what you're expecting, and then there's 2 other ways to compensate for that. So if you're looking for a 4% beer, you might want to brew an 8 or a 10% and hope that you get down to the pH you want before it eats all the sugar. If not, if it doesn't get down, you're going to have to start feeding it some corn sugar, some malt, dry malt extract, whatever you need to do, but you need to feed it. Keep giving it sugar until you get your pH. How are you going to know you get your pH? Well, when you're done doing your mash, you're going to extract your mash basket, get everything out, get all your wort, make sure you have all your drippings. Okay, now you know what you have, and that's what we're going to have to not only boil down later, but for now, we're just going to bring it up to boil for 5 minutes, no additions, nothing special, and then we're going to cool it back down. Okay, so now we have the wort that we're going to sour. You want to get a temperature, make sure it's the correct temperature for pitching your bug or bacteria. Then you're going to want to get a gravity, okay? There's 2 ways you can do this. You can use, like I said, one of these, or Brewing America also has one that's basically calibrated for 155 Fahrenheit. Keep in mind, these are calibrated for either 60 or 68, and if you're taking a hydrometer reading and the temperature's not at those temperatures, you're going to have to get a temperature reading too, and then you go into a calculator online and you just check it out and verify where you're supposed to be and say, oh, there's the off, it's by +1 or -1, whatever it may be. So you can get a good gravity reading, okay? Don't worry about your pH yet. You can say, hey, here's where I am and here's where I want to go. I would recommend it, but not critical at the very beginning. So now we have our wort, we know that it's correct temperature, we know what our original gravity is, and now we're going to pitch our bacteria, okay? We're going to put cellophane, we're going to put a lid, we're going to keep it at or just a hair below where it needs to be to ensure that we're not spiking too high or hurting the bacteria. And we're going to either let that go, if it's in the morning, great, that's probably great, or we're going to let it go overnight. If you go overnight, first thing when you get up, go out, pull a sample, you need to get a gravity, and you need to get a pH reading, okay? And you need to keep repeating that process every few hours until you get, now honestly, you don't have to do the gravity, but I would recommend it because if you run out of sugar, your pH is not going to keep going down. So if you take a pH reading and it's say 3.48 and you do it again a little later and it's still 3.48, you probably should do a gravity reading because you're probably out of sugar. Once you get down to where you want, 3.3, 3.2, wherever it may be, that's where you want to stop, okay? You want to make sure you have a good gravity reading. You know exactly where you're at. If you're at 1.000, we can fix that. If you're at 1.020, at least you know where you're at. You know what amount of sugar you might have available to get to the ABV based on the yeast you're going to pitch. Okay, so now go ahead, do your boil. Boil everything down so you get down to, let's say, 5 gallons if that's what you're shooting for, 5.15 like I usually do, 5 1/4, whatever it may be that you're trying to get, okay? As you're down and you're getting ready to chill it, you're like, okay, I'm good, this looks great, pull some, cool it down if you don't have the 155, and if you do, you're still gonna have to cool it down a little bit, but it'll drop to 155 very quickly. It just won't drop down to 60 very quickly, or even on its own sometimes. Get a gravity reading. Okay, so let's say you get a gravity reading and it's 1.030 and you really wanted a 1.060. It's fine. You can now do what you could have done in the beginning of the boil and added more corn sugar, or you could have added some malt extract. Malt extract's going to impact the flavor based on which one you're using, how much you're using, but it's going to help maintain the body. Corn sugar is going to be the easiest, simplest, but it will dry it out more and it will also thin the beer out, which may not be as favorable. You can correct that with a little bit of dextrin, but that's your call. So you're gonna wanna do this. Basically, either make a big beer, bring it down, just before the boil, add whatever additional sugars you want it to add, or at the end of the boil, add whatever sugars you need to get to go where you wanna be, knowing where you expect to be on your final gravity so you can get the alcohol content that you want in your kettle sour. So there's 3 locations you can do it. But I'm telling you, these 2 are critical constantly. I'm hoping that you can maintain temp. So as long as you maintain temp, once you're all said and done, you can do your hop additions. You can do whatever you want throughout the boil. No big deal. Okay, you got all kinds of crazy additions, you can add it. Fruit, crazy stuff, whatever. Keep in mind too, if you're adding fruit after that, you also want to take a gravity reading because fruit is going to contribute more sugar, which is going to help push that ABV up. That's how I got 1% because of the fruit I added after I was at 1.000. So that's something to be aware of. I hope that was helpful. I know that was a lot to digest, and yeah, I learned the hard way. Hopefully you don't have to. And for the love of God, if somebody out there is here watching this and they write articles about kettle sours, point out that bacteria eats sugar, and you need to keep checking your gravity, and you need to keep checking your pH. And once you get to the right pH, check your gravity again, because that's what you have left for your fermenter. And if you don't have anything, you need to put something in there. But yeah, that was very frustrating. And as always, I appreciate the support. Thank you. And drinking a pineapple bomb, haven't even done that video yet for you, but I will. I'll have that out in the future. Cheers. Thank you.